Ukraine has suffered horrific attacks. Missiles and airstrikes have torn through apartment blocks. Tanks have rolled into once peaceful cities. Innocent people, including children, have lost their lives. The situation is fluid, but as of today, Putin has not taken any major cities. Their advance has been slowed by Ukraine's fierce resistance. Putin's invasion is not proceeding to plan. He expected to take cities quickly. He expected Ukraine to retreat, and he expected the West to be divided. Instead, his forces were met by the heroism of President Zelensky and the resolute determination of the Ukrainian people. He has been met by a united West, together with our friends around the world, and we have taken decisive action. Today, we have acted with the US, the EU, Japan and Canada to cut Russia's central bank off from our markets. The ruble has fallen by over 40% as a result. As much as $250 billion have been wiped off the Russian stock market, and today their stock market is closed. The EU, Germany, Sweden and others are following our lead in providing defensive weapons to Ukraine. Germany has frozen Nord Stream 2. Putin has been confounded by our collective response. That is why he is resorting to more and more extreme rhetoric. But of course, the situation remains dire. The government and people of Ukraine are facing a continued onslaught. The days ahead are likely to prove tougher still. The UK and our allies will have to undergo some economic hardship as a result of our sanctions. But our hardships are nothing compared to those endured by the people of Ukraine. Casualty numbers are rising, and over 300,000 people have already been displaced. This is a struggle for Ukraine's freedom and self-determination, but it is also a struggle for freedom and democracy everywhere, and for a survival of a Europe whole and free. We feel a particular responsibility, as the UK is a signatory to the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, which provided Ukraine with security guarantees. This premeditated invasion, in violation of international law and multiple international commitments, cannot succeed. Putin must lose. We are doing everything we can to stop him and to restore Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We will do this by backing Ukraine against unjustified aggression, by degrading the Russian economy and stopping it funding Putin's war machine, and by isolating Putin on the world stage. First of all, we're backing Ukraine with defensive weapons, humanitarian aid and economic support. The UK was the first European nation to send defensive weapons to the country. Those weapons are being used today to halt Russian tanks and defend Ukrainian towns and cities. Our latest consignment of defensive support left Brize Norton over the weekend. We're also leading on humanitarian support. Yesterday, my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, announced a further 40 million of humanitarian aid. This will provide Ukrainians with access to basic necessities and vital medical supplies. We call on Russia to enable humanitarian access and safe passage for civilians to flee the violence. The UK is also supporting Ukraine's economy, including through 100 million of ODA and guarantees of up to $500 million in development bank loans. Secondly, we are cutting off funding for Putin's war machine. We're coming together with the US, the G7 and the EU to take further decisive steps. We've been joined by Australia, Singapore, Switzerland and many more. There is a growing list of countries who are determined that this aggression cannot stand. We've agreed many Russian banks will be removed from the SWIFT system, kicking them out of international finance. This is the first step towards a total SWIFT ban. Our collective action against Russia's central bank will prevent them from deploying their international reserves to mitigate the impact of our sanctions. We're also launching a joint task force to hunt down the assets of oligarchs hit by our sanctions. The UK is proud to lead by example. We've already put in place the largest package of sanctions in our history. We've sanctioned Putin and Lavrov, Russia's defence industry, and a growing list of oligarchs. We've approved asset freezes on several Russian banks. We're banning Russian airlines and private jets from our airspace. but we are determined to go much, much further. We want a situation where they can't access their funds, their trade can't flow, their ships can't dock, and their planes can't land. Today, I can inform the House I will be laying 2 new pieces of sanctions legislation. The first introduces a set of new powers against Russia's financial sector. It includes powers to prevent Russian banks from clearing payments in sterling. With over 50% of Russian trade denominated in dollars or sterling, our coordinated action with the United States will damage Russia's ability to trade with the world. And as soon as this legislation comes into force, we will apply it to Sberbank, Russia's largest bank. I will also be imposing a full asset freeze on 3 further banks: VEB, Russia's National Development Bank; Sovcombank, the 3rd largest privately owned financial institution in Russia; and Oskryter, one of Russia's largest commercial banks. We will bring in a full asset freeze on all Russian banks in days, looking to coordinate with our allies. This same legislation will prevent the Russian state from raising debt here, and it will isolate all Russian companies, that's over 3 million businesses, from accessing UK capital markets. Global giants like Gazprom will no longer be able to issue debt or equity in London. The second piece of legislation will ban exports to Russia across a range of critical sectors. This includes high-end technological equipment such as microelectronics, marine and navigation equipment. This will blunt Russia's military-industrial capabilities and act as a drag on Russia's economy for years to come. I appreciate the consequences of this step for British people and British businesses operating in Russia, and the Department of International Trade and the Treasury will offer advice and guidance to affected UK businesses. My consular staff will continue to support British nationals in Russia, as well as those in Ukraine. And we will keep ratcheting up our response. More legislation will follow in coming weeks in sanctioning Russian-occupied territories in the Donbass, extending more sanctions to Belarus, and limiting Russian deposits in UK banks. We will continue working through our hit list of oligarchs, focusing on their houses, their yachts, and every aspect of their lives. In addition, we will be introducing the Economic Crime Bill tomorrow. My right honourable friend, the Business Secretary, will be setting out more in the next statement in the House. This is all about flushing out the oligarchs' dirty money from the United Kingdom. And we will continue to work with our G7 allies to cut off the Russian economy and cut the free world's dependence on Russian gas, depriving Putin of his key source of revenue. Finally, we're leading the diplomatic effort to ensure there is a chorus of condemnation against President Putin. In the OSCE, a key part of the European security architecture, 45 countries condemn Russia by name. At the UN Security Council on Friday, over 80 UN members voted for or co-sponsored a resolution condemning Russia's aggression. Russia stood alone in opposing it. Putin is isolated. No one is willing to back his war of choice. In recent days, I've spoken to my counterparts in more than 20 countries around the world. Yesterday, I met G7 foreign ministers, where we were joined by Ukraine's brave foreign minister, my friend Dmytro Kuleba. Everyone is clear Putin must lose, and we will carry on increasing the pressure until he does. We have all seen Ukraine's determination to fight. Putin's war could end up lasting for months and years. So I say to our Ukrainian friends, we are with you. In Britain and around the world, we're prepared to suffer economic sacrifices to support you. However long it takes, we will not rest until Ukraine's sovereignty is restored. I commend this statement to the House.